Welcome to the Rise Above show with Patricia Jo Grover. Today, my guest is Sandy Geroux. And let me tell you, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. But first, I want to thank our sponsor for the show. They're our proud sponsor is 133 Approved Funding. So they're doing great things for businesses internationally, because they're saying, when you go to banks and banks say no, they say yes. So you still need the same qualifier type things for them. But right now, there's a need for this in all over the world. So wonderful. So Sandy, oh my goodness, so glad to have you here with me.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Patty. I'm thrilled to be here.
Awesome. So let me do a little introduction here for Sandy. Now, Sandy is no stranger to risk. In fact, learning to embrace reasonable and appropriate risks in her personal and professional life is what happened to raise her above whether the challenges whatever has come her way. Her story has inspired so many people and others to try new risks and advance their careers and for personal fulfillment. So, and I want to just get a little bit deeper with that. Sandy, and it's M.S., is an award-winning international speaker, trainer, and author. She delivers engaging presentations to help leaders implement everyday actions that inspire team members to go that extra mile to create exceptional experiences for everyone around them. Sandy has helped over 30,000 attendees in over 125 companies activate on a culture of wow by finding ways to encourage creativity, tap into hidden talents and interests, and create a culture of respect and service. Her interactive programs overflow with ideas and tips to help raise that employee engagement and customer service. Attendees describe her dynamic speaking style as enthusiastic, energetic, and extremely motivating. So I am so pleased to have Sandy with me today.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this is so exciting because you and I have made connections through networking actually, and that's
Yes.
such a big way because a lot of people who are extroverts and are used to doing presentations via stages and everything hands have been tied behind the backs because of what's happened with the global pandemic. And it is all about, and it is to me, as you know, Sandy, I'm the goal achievement strategist. For me, it is all about coming from a place of service, and that's where I think you and I made that connection, really. So so
Yes, I
so
could see that. Yes.
so happy to have you with me. So let me ask you a few questions, if that's okay, because
Sure, no
all
problem.
that exciting information that you have for us. So so going back to, because I understand you're no stranger to risk, but that tricks some triggers here. So what are some of the biggest risks that you've taken to get where you are today?
Well, I think taking risk is all about how we rise above. There are always going to be challenges, and we can either run away from them or we can take the risk to embrace the ones that feel right for us. And the one of the biggest ones I took was when I was working as an administrative professional. I was working for a private company. I was working for the CEO and the executive vice president. Now, in this position, I was not happy. The man I was working for was unbelievably difficult to work for. And his wife, who didn't even work for the company, was worse.
Oh,
And every single day, I was in her direct line of fire simply because I worked for her husband.
ugh.
It was awful. I was miserable. But at that time, we had bought and sold a couple of houses through this particular realtor, and we'd become friends. And let me tell you, when she heard that I was uncomfortable and I was unhappy in my job, she changed my life with one sentence.
Oh, now I wonder.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Uh,
there it
I'm
was. It was
hanging.
like,
I'm
okay,
hanging on the
here's the
edge.
sentence. And you're going to say, what? The sentence was this. She said to me, you'd be a good realtor. I laughed laughed at her the first time I heard it, because I was like, well, thank you for the compliment, but I've never sold a thing in my life, and why would I take that risk?
Right.
Go into business for myself. I had a job, benefits, all that stuff, but I hated it. Well, so I promptly put that crazy notion out of my mind, but apparently it didn't go out of my heart, because about 3 months later, she repeated it. And this time I was ready to hear it.
Wow.
You see, sometimes we're not ready to hear a good suggestion the first time it comes around, right? Especially if it's something so new, you've never done it before. Why would you take that risk? But something about it made me say, wait a minute. She is a broker owner. She owns a real estate agency. She knows.
Exactly.
Yes, she knows what she's talking about. And here's the key. She sees something in me that I don't even see in myself. So I figured, you know what? I have no place to go from here but up. So I leaped into real estate. And I promptly found out how wrong that was. I had a lot farther down to go. I went from working 40 to 45 hours, making $42,000 a year, to working about 60 to 65 hours, and I made $13,000 my first year in real estate. But it was. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, exactly. That industry is definitely challenging, and it does take a lot. There's a lot of nights and weekends involved if you're doing that, and of course you know that very well.
Yes. Well, and it's so funny you say that, because my husband thought I would never take that job, because family is very important to me. I am 100% Italian. My married name is Geroux. That's French Canadian. That's my husband. But my maiden name is Pettorelli, and that is 100% Italian. It's family time every weekend, But I knew this felt right for me. I could go work for her. I really liked her. And I said, well, all right. So after that first year, they don't teach you how to sell in those real estate classes. Right. They teach you the laws and what to do for that. But I said, wait, I'm 38 years old at that time. I have never failed at a job in my life, and I am not about to start now. So I got more training, I got coaching, I got education, and within 2 years of doing the business right, I broke my first 6-figure income ever. Yes, ever! Yes. And that changed everything. Just doing that. So, that's one of the biggest risks. And I always think about that, because if I had never taken that risk, where would I be today? Would I be miserable, still in that kind of a job? What would have happened to me? And I just love what I have done. I've taken a pretty circuitous path to where I am now, always having to think about what's the next thing I need to do, and should I do that? But you know what? It's made me who I am today. And I just feel like I am doing now what I was put on this earth to do.
Isn't there something to be said for when you know your purpose and you know your why? And I think I've shared with you before, I choose at this point in my life to live my life purposefully, joyfully, and gratefully. And to me, that's like 3 circles, and where they meet in the middle, that's perfection. To me, that's bliss. That's a nice, comfortable feeling, and I want more people to be able to feel like that. That's why I do what I do. So
and that's why I do what I do. I work with people in the corporate environment, trying to help them find more joy in their careers and help themselves get the advancement that they know they deserve and they want.
Exactly. Enough of this banging your head against the wall, people. Enough of that. There's so much out there right now, and I love having guests like you, Sandy, because we are putting that out to the world, that they can have more, be more, and do more, and do it having joy in your life. And that's so important. We need that so badly.
It is. So life is tough enough. We don't need to do it without joy.
Exactly. Fantastic. So how did you overcome your fears when it came to risk? Because that's a big thing for people, and I work with people all the time on that, but what would you say was how you overcame that?
I think the biggest thing for me to be able to first of all, I think you have to reach a point where the pain of continuing to do what you're doing outweighs the fear of what you could possibly do otherwise or differently.
Right.
So I think I got to that point, and there have been many times where I've gotten to that point, and occasionally I won't say yes to the risk because I'm not at that point. And a couple of times I should have said yes anyway, but that's a different story. But I think when you get to that point, now you have to just be really careful. You don't leap into the wrong thing just to do something. Okay. So you don't want to leap out of desperation. But for me, I ask myself questions. Like for me, it was, well, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen?
Yeah.
And I try to think of what is the absolute worst. Now, it's funny, when I do my risk program for audiences, a lot of times they say, oh, what are you talking about? Jumping out of airplanes or race car driving, that kind of risk. Well, no, because I ask myself, well, if you're talking about skydiving, what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, death. Could I tolerate that? Not very well. So there's my next question. Could I tolerate it? And if not, well, okay, what do I have to do to make sure that doesn't happen? Like what I think skydivers must say to themselves is, okay, I don't want to risk death either, but I have a parachute. I'm not going to jump out without a parachute.
Right.
And a backup chute, just in case the parachute. So what are your backup plans? What can you do if you run into a problem? Because I think, if you start making at least some rudimentary backup plans, it's so much easier than trying to think in the middle of a crisis.
Right. Be proactive rather than reactive. And that's what I teach a lot too. Yes.
Exactly. Perfectly said.
That gives you that backup extra state of mind that, hey, I'll be all good. I'll be all good.
Yep. And that's happened to me several times. I always think about what's my fallback position. So when I jumped out of administrative professional, jobs in the corporate world, I went into real estate and I said, well, I can always go back and work as an administrative professional. Then when I sold my real estate business, I had the opportunity to get into speaking and training. I said, well, if that doesn't work, I could always go back to real estate. I did very well at that and I loved it. And then, when I got into speaking and training, it was like, well, if this, it doesn't work or I want to get into consulting, I could just focus on the one things that As you branch out, you have a fallback position to go harder on something that you know works.
Right. So and best of all, you know that you like it.
Yes. Yes. And that's what I said. When I sold my real estate business, I went into partnership with somebody who 1 year later, the partnership was dead because you just do not know people until you get into business with them. Yeah. Not a good thing. But by that time, I had 40 coaching clients by the end of that first year in speaking. Yes. And I said, well, okay, if this doesn't work, I could go back to real estate. But right now it looks like it's working pretty well. So I continued with that. But all through different points of my life, I always looked at what could I do if this does? Because my husband asked me when I get into real estate and I made $13,000. He says, honey, what'd you do? I said, I don't know, but I'll fix it. I'm going to fix it. So that's what you have to do. Just go in knowing that I plan as much as I can. Life is going to happen. Things are going to come up you're not going to be able to expect, but find a way to fix it. Mm-hmm. And be focused on that.
Right. And Sandy, so that really ties in, and I like to share too with what I do. It's all about having our curiosity be greater than our fears, to create and have those plans, have those smarter plans. Then you have to have the courage and consistency to work those plans, Yes. So yes, and having them, but also, it's very important talking about calendaring and planning and putting how you put that plan together with that, but having your planning days in there to check your measurables, because that's what happens to keep us from going too far off track. That's why having those days scheduled in and to look at where everything is. And that helps people go. So, fantastic. And another thing when we were talking came back to my mind is I've recently had a guest and we were talking about sometimes people see something in you that you don't notice in yourself yet, and that's what happened with you with the whole real estate thing. And if this
Absolutely.
hadn't happened, your journey in life might have been so much different.
It would have.
Yeah, so so sometimes it is good to listen. Hey, somebody might say you're talented in this or with that, and I really want to bring this to our viewers and listeners today, because so many people have had to shift and pivot because the jobs and careers that they've had, may no longer exist when we come out of this pandemic. You may need to be doing those things for yourself. So it's great to have guests like Sandy here sharing with us, that might not have been what you had in your own plan or an intention of doing, but somebody may see something in you and may have commented, hey, you'd be great at this or that. So, really search and dig deep inside yourself if you're willing to take those chances, if it's something that you see that. So,
And if
wonderful.
you're hearing that from somebody or from multiple people, especially, it's like, wow, something is shining through here and being obvious to everyone but me. What am I missing? That maybe, even if you don't leave your current job, maybe could you do it as a hobby? Could you do it in your community? Could you do it somewhere else to bring joy to your life? Because sometimes your job isn't the only thing that could, bring joy. Hopefully your job isn't the only thing.
Right, exactly.
And especially if you're miserable in your job, you'll have an outlet until you figure out what to do with the job. So
yes, exactly. And that's what it is. And give yourself, everyone needs to give themselves a pat on the back. You have more strengths than you even realize. And there's opportunities lying out there for every single one of us. We just may not have uncovered them yet. Yep. So, wonderful. Absolutely. Great conversation, Sandy.
Hey.
so
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. So how did you determine what, was a risk and what was the right risk for you to take, or what were you willing to take for a risk?
Yeah, that's a good question. Basically, once you get yourself to the point where you want to take the risk or you're considering a risk, I think you have to look at what I call the risk to reward ratio.
Okay.
What is the reward I expect to get in relation to the amount of risk I need to take? In other words, is it worth it?
Right.
Because if I'm going to take this ridiculously huge, humongous risk and all I'm going to get is this in return, why am I doing that? And it doesn't mean that much to me. So I think we have to ask ourselves, what does this mean? To me, it meant emotional, professional, personal survival, not even just thriving. At that point, it was surviving because I
were so unhappy where you were.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, 3 weeks into my job, I'm crying at my desk because she was so brutal to me. And it was over nothing I did, but I was there, I was convenient, and I was like, I do not need to be crying sitting at my desk. It was horrible. And so for me, it was actually a question of survival. Now, there are other times when it's not that big, but for me, like when I switched out of the real estate training, because I did well. I love that. I love the coaching of those people and helping them get their businesses to where they could be too. But I knew that there was so much unhappiness in the corporate world. And to me, it was a question of more personal fulfillment, being able to help people there. So the risk I took when I switched gears was I'm letting go of all these coaching clients over time, who created a very nice passive income stream for me. But I didn't jump out and lose everything. I did a transition. So the risk to reward ratio was worth my saying, how can I transition from one thing to another? Because leaping like that first time, it was a matter of survival. Right. That was the only thing I could do. I didn't have another job. I didn't know what I was doing. Okay, fine. But I was committed to making sure it either worked or I went back to something that did work at a different place. Right. So I had the plan.
You had that plan and that smarter plan, and that's a big part of everything. And when you do have that, that's a way. And what I teach my clients is that's a way. When you have that, that's a way for you not to be like this all the time.
Yes.
The white knuckle express on what you're doing. It's a way to take that breath and relax and be able to enjoy. And that's what, that's what it's all about, is to be able to live life and live life in the present and be able to be there for yourself, but for your loved ones. When how sometimes you feel like if you're starting something new or doing something and you're so afraid to mess up that you're again that white knuckle express, and every time you're like there and you're not taking a breath to live life or enjoy anything. And so that means you're not showing up for birthday parties, anniversaries, and forgetting this stuff because you're so intent on everything else. And that's no way to actually live life, is it?
No. And you know what? That is such an important point, the preparation too, because luckily, we've come to crossroads. My husband and I in last December, we were married 38 years. That was our 38th anniversary.
Congratulations.
So thank you. And through our lives, we've both had the opportunity to do different things. And whenever one of us would go independent or go back to a corporate thing or whatever, the other would hold the family, take on the health insurance and have the steady paycheck while the other one built a business. And then when that one said, oh, you know what, there's an opportunity for me to go this, and I have an opportunity here, it seemed to work together. But we've prepared our whole lives for the rainy day. Now, that doesn't mean we put our lives on hold. We've taken vacations every year. We enjoyed our kids, all that stuff. But I have to tell you that when my partnership fell apart, when we first moved down to Florida, I sold my business in Rhode Island and moved down to Florida. When my business fell apart, at almost exactly the same time, my husband was laid off from his job. So both of us, and my partner stole a lot of money from me. So I lost a lot of money to him. My husband was out of work. I had a business that was like, okay, I had my piece of it. But because we've been smart our entire married lives, we paid down our mortgage extra every year. So we've been mortgage free since 1995. We don't get into big debt. Our cars are paid off. I never put anything on a credit card that I can't pay off that month. If I can't do that, I don't buy it.
Very smart.
I wait till I can. And because of that, when that happened, we didn't have to white knuckle it like, oh, we're going to lose our house because we bought such a big house or something over our heads. No, we didn't do that. We bought within our means. And last year when the pandemic hit, my husband's now retired. And when the pandemic hit, I lost 80% of my income because it came from keynote speaking and training in person. And I was like, whoa. And again, when we bought this house, we sold the other house. We paid cash for this. We don't have to white knuckle it. And I sit there and say, I don't know what I would do if I was worrying about having to pay a big mortgage over my head, or even just put food on the table right now. So I think that, one of the risks I tell people to do is when you are younger, take the risk to even take $10 a week and put it away, or put a little extra on your mortgage, or do something. Yes, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Live life, enjoy your family, but do something so you don't have to white knuckle it if a worst thing could happen and now you don't know what you're going to do, because over time that gives you such peace of mind. You have such a better life. Yes. Just because you don't have to worry about that.
Exactly, Sandy. I could not have said that any better. It is so true. And what I teach with my clients is we need to learn to put ourselves first. And when I say that, I say physically, but not just that, spiritually, emotionally, financially, learn how to do those things. Because if we don't, we are not, that's like getting on the plane and they say, put your oxygen mask on first, if anything were to happen.
That's right.
And that's the way it is. And that's the same thing in our calendar. And so that we are able to enjoy those holidays and different things with everybody. If we put our big stones into our calendars and everything, then fill in everything else around that gives us that opportunity to live our lives with joy.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. It creates incredible peace of mind to just make sure that you're doing a little something that just take that. It sounds like a big risk. I don't have the money to spare. You don't have the money not to spare later on if something happens. So
Right.
just $1, $5, whatever.
And I promise, and I know, Sandy, you'll say the same thing. I promise life will happen to every single one of us, whether we are ready for it or not. So guess
Right.
what? Be proactive rather than reactive.
Right, exactly. And boy, and it will happen over and
And
over and over again.
We
So,
promise you it will.
yes,
Yes.
you can hold us to that.
Yes. Oh, wonderful. So let me ask you. So, Sandy, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned that helps you rise above any challenges that come your way?
It's funny. When I got into real estate at first, and I made $13,000, and I said, honey, I'm going to fix it. But I wanted to fix it. But here's what I did. My income had been pretty much capped at that point at 40 something thousand, because as an executive assistant, in the Rhode Island area, well, that was about the top of the salary range. So my goal was, if I could just make 40,000 like I did as a secretary, I would be happy. Are you kidding me?
You were thinking too small, my dear.
Yes, I was, exactly. And here's why. Because I had never done anything bigger. I didn't believe it was possible for me to do something bigger. Right. I went to where I'd been before and no more. That is not where, for me, I came up with, I'd see all these realtors making all this money, and I'd come up with every excuse in the book why it was possible for them, but not for me. And then I said, wait, this job is too hard. I'm responsible for people's homes and finances and things like that, and making sure that they're whole. That's a heck of a lot different than what I was doing before, and worth a heck of a lot more money, because I had my own business and I was taking on huge, gigantic financial responsibilities for them. So then when I got my coach, I finally said, wait a minute. Okay, I was looking at all these other realtors out there who were doing it. And now I had a system, and I had someone there to help me and tell me where I might be going wrong. And I finally started to believe that it was possible for me. Mm-hmm. Once I broke through that barrier, I realized that I was my own worst enemy, simply because I didn't believe it was possible for me. So the biggest thing that I learned was, why, instead of saying why me, say why not me. Yes. Why couldn't I do that? And not only why couldn't I, but how can I, and then go after it. Yes. So you will shock yourself to death when you do it the first time. But once I did that, it like I said, it changed everything I ever believed about me, my abilities, my capabilities, everything. Yes. And when you break through that barrier, there is no going back. Exactly. I love it. I love it. I love it, Sandy, because it is so true. That goes back to what I do. I work with clients on our belief windows, the way that we see. We have these goggles on, and some of those thoughts and feelings that are deep within us come from when we're children and things we've experienced, but also sometimes in life as we've gotten. And if you have those employers or whatever that's saying and keeping you down and all those things, some people just hold on to that and don't feel like they're worthy or capable. Can I share something with you? Yeah, sure. On that line, it is so funny. I told you I'm 100% Italian. I love my Italian heritage. I love my family. They're wonderful. But I've got to tell you that, I'm 64 years old right now. So back in the day when I was growing up, not a lot of women were working outside the house. True. Okay. So, and here was the mindset of the Mediterranean Latin, a lot of the Latin people at that time, was the man is the big breadwinner. The woman can have a little job and support, but you would never make more than your husband, or you would humiliate him, right? Or your dad, anything. So I grew up, now my parents didn't try to teach me things like
but
this.
That was just the way it was.
That's the way it was. And in fact, it's so funny. When I got into real estate, of course, when you're in sales, if you're a go-getter, your income is almost limitless, right? So my husband was a middle manager. He had the nice income. He had the, the company car and all of that. He was always the big breadwinner till I got in sales. And the first year I ever made more than he did, I was so shocked. I'm at a Christmas party at my cousin's and my aunt's house one time. My cousins are all standing around. And I don't know how it came to finances or money, but I just blurted out accidentally, I made more money than Bruce did last year. And my cousin went, oh, she put her hand on my mouth. Quiet, you'll embarrass him. To which my wonderful husband, who did not grow up like that, says, are you kidding? I'm asking her when I can retire. It's like, go, Bruce.
Yes. Oh.
There was the personification of, oh my gosh, you can't do it. You can't talk about it.
Exactly.
You're humiliating someone if you do that well. Because they didn't. My parents wanted me to have more opportunities than they had.
Right.
But the feeling was, if you do better, you make someone else worse or feel worse. And it's not true.
Right. And that unfortunately is still true today in some social economical, it can be from cultural barriers or whatever like that, but we are in a world today that no longer do any of us have to live under those speculations,
Right.
So,
Right. No matter where you come from or what you do, you don't have to believe that. So just because, and I think, who was it? Marianne, I forget the poet who said something about your playing small doesn't make other people, big. So play big.
Right.
Bring everybody else with you. Share the wealth. My dad actually started doing some part-time work for me. My mom started doing some work for me. I sent them to Washington, D.C. because they wanted to go to a party there. They'd never been to Washington, but I was doing well enough in real estate. I gave them a beautiful trip because they helped me and I paid them. But I mean, It was just amazing. And they were so happy for me. They didn't feel that way, but I thought it was going to be embarrassing to somebody.
Right. Right. And that's true in so many instances, Yes. So, So the viewers and listeners here today, really, I hope you were able to get some nuggets from this conversation because it has been so wonderful. And the fact of the matter is that you are worthy, you are capable, and you're not in this alone. Everybody has been through struggles, but there is a way to be able to move forward. And Sandy has said, and I say, there are coaches and mentors out there that can help you in whatever area that you're needing assistance in, because even the best, highest paid athletes all have coaches and trainers. Everybody in life, we have to have somebody that encourages us, that ignites passion within us. So wonderful.
And a voice coach one time said to me, Sandy, you can have a lot of natural talent, but if you have a voice coach, like I sing, I had never taken training or anything vocal training before that. My whole family sings and plays musical instruments, so we're very musical.
I play the radio.
My husband does that too. But she said to me, but Sandy, coaching can make a good singer a great singer because they develop the natural talent you have. And that's what I believe that coaches can do for us, help us develop our natural talents.
Right. Fantastic. Yeah. So Sandy, do you have any gifts for our viewers and listeners?
Well, I do actually. Now, I don't have it on a page right now, but I have an ebook, and it's based on my, when I launched my book, Turn Your Workplace into a Wow Place. The ebook is 50 Ways to Wow Your Others. And it's based on the song. Of course, it's musically related. It's the first several tips are based on the song 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. So, the first one is slip out the back, Jack, and
cool.
So I have that as a free ebook. And if they want to email me at Sandy, Sandy, at thewowplace.com, then I will send them a copy of the ebook, 50 Ways to Wow Your Others. And people have really enjoyed that. So
Oh,
Hopefully we
thank
mentioned.
you. Oh, thank you. That's a wonderful gift, Sandy. Oh, and it sounds fun, fun and exciting too, and not just something boring. Oh,
Yeah, not
wonderful.
just boring. I hate
Yeah.
boring.
Yeah, wonderful. So exciting. So I want to take this moment again to thank our proud sponsors of 133 approved funding, and a lot of people are in need, and businesses to keep doors
Mhm.
opened, and actually starting new businesses for people that have lost their jobs or careers that they've had their whole life, and now trying to get something started. So
Mhm.
um, for anyone who'd like to find out more about me, you can go to patriciajogrover.com. And I have gifts for people who want to text the word GOAL, GOAL, to 26786. And so thank you again for being with me, Sandy. And
My pleasure.
yeah, and we'll see everybody else next time.
Okay. See you later.
All right, bye bye.
Bye.